Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I went to that same daycare that your kids went to, so I turned out okay, maybe. You know, I don't think we should diminish how difficult this process is, and I say that obviously as someone, as a councillor who just went through it, and happened to be a local resident too in that instance. But it's difficult for a lot of people. You know, it's difficult for someone who's concerned about it, and whether that's based on fear or misinformation, to have to come here and be labeled as the NIMBY or the person who's not as, you know, open-hearted or has the vision as others might in their community. And so it's difficult for those people. I think it's difficult for a local councillor and a local representative to navigate these waters. And I think it's difficult for the new neighbors who are going to be moving into a neighborhood, who probably do so with trepidation when they read and hear what the debate has been before their arrival. I do think, though, recognizing all those difficulties, that we as a city can and should do a better job. I've not been at this as long as maybe Councillor Mihevc and has watched a lot of these relocations or shelter moves, but in the few I've seen, it sounds very similar every time. I hear people who are upset with process, where the consultation wasn't rigorous enough. And I think that's a product of two things. I think we, in one part, are scared to go out and to have this conversation because of the reaction. And so maybe there's even though we don't know we're doing it as a city, that we reluctantly engage in it, and so maybe we don't engage as a robust way as we could and should. I also think part of it is that we're maybe not being completely honest with residents about this process. And maybe it's information that is all that we can provide, and it's not consultation, because as Councillor Mihevc said, every single relocation has been approved by council. And so I think we have to look at the process. I think one deputant even spoke to what might seem like minor things, but even the way we conduct a meeting, I think totally can taint or color how residents respond to these new neighbors moving into their neighborhood. Even the way our notices go out. And again, they might seem trite compared to the big picture items, but I'm not sure why we repeat the same mistakes and inevitably put everything on a bad footing. If our end goal is for us to want these shelters to succeed, then I don't know why we would invest so little time into the way we inform people and welcome new neighbors into a part of the city. I also think that we have to look at the rules or the requirements for a shelter's location. And I almost felt bad for one deputant speaking about the arterial versus minor arterial, because I think if we're again honest, the only criteria is finding a building that's zoned. And there's a real estate transaction that makes sense for the provider in the city. I don't think there are any other criteria. We should have a debate as whether there should be, and I think that debate should be informed and focused by the fact, what will make this shelter succeed? Not focused on the negatives in the community, but are there services and supports? Well, that's a good thing. That would be a good location. And again, to sound a bit like a broken record, when this comes up again, and I thank the chair for giving me a little extra time here, we know there's going to be relocations. We're going to have this exact same meeting at this committee before the midterm of this term, I'm sure of it. Just based on Toronto real estate prices alone and shelters being forced out and the need for shelters going up. We're going to have this conversation again and again and again, and we can't keep having it the same way. So we have to change process. We have to have the honest conversation. We have to do a better job of communicating what's real or what's not about people who happen to reside in a shelter. And I just think if we don't have that honest conversation, we'll have these meetings. It'll never be perfect. It'll always be difficult for the reasons I set out. But I think we have to do a better job of anticipating and planning for it. I'm at the point now where I think, you know what? If you don't have a shelter in your ward as a city councillor, well, you're going to have one, because we're going to have one in every single ward in the city. And start now deciding on where the perfect location is. So when it comes, you can't say, we welcome a shelter in our ward, just not there. Because it's coming. And I think we need to do that and recognize that. And maybe that would start to break down some of the barriers if it was driven that way. But I'll support these motions certainly, because I think it gives the community some of the comfort they need and some of the amenities they need. But I do think we have to do this differently, and we have to change this process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.